Real estate with Jess and Brandon. So why it is so important to make sure that everything on the Realtor.ca listing is correct before it goes live on the market. So every time we have a listing, we fill out all the information, we send it to the client before it goes live and ask them, please look absolutely everything over, make sure it's 100% correct, because that is what's going to be advertised. And what is on Realtor.ca was input by the staff at the brokerage. So at Century 21, we have staff that inputs the information. So there could be an error where they accidentally say there's an extra bedroom, or I've seen listings that say they have an elevator when clearly they don't, just because it was a simple error. So it's really important to make sure you look them over. And also, you don't want to be misrepresenting your listing because you could get in trouble. The realtor can get in trouble and the seller can get in trouble. And often sellers will want us to put things on the listing. Like they'll say, you know, we put in a new kitchen in 2022, but they don't have any receipts. So that makes it difficult, because if we're even off a little bit and somehow the buyer of the property can prove that, or it's incorrect, then the seller could be in trouble. So there have been cases where sellers have stated that things are new that aren't new, and buyers have sued them and won.
Yeah, no, for sure. I have a listing where I was saying there's a bedroom in the basement. It was one bedroom on the main level, which is like not common. And then it was two bedrooms in the basement, used as bedrooms, but the one didn't have a window. And then one of the agents who showed it in the feedback was like, oh, I'm surprised you can say this is a bedroom, there's no window. And I'm like, oh shoot, like he's right, there's no window here. So I called the township, I'm like, what's the definition of a bedroom? And they're like, oh, it has to be a certain size, has to have like a window, egress, doesn't have to have a closet necessarily. So I'm like, okay, it has to have a window. There actually is a window in there, but it's a transom window leading to the living room.
Right.
Not the exterior. It's like kind of unique like that. So I'm like, could that be fine? He's like, no, it has to be for sunlight, like coming through. So right away changed it. Obviously it matters for when an offer comes in, everything has to be accurate. But obviously as an agent, you want to make sure that you're not like wrong about anything, right? So like property taxes, we can't call the township and get it. You have to have the client do that on
we can look up them too, though.
Yeah. And then things like square footage too. I have a listing maybe coming up here soon where he thought it was 1,800 square feet. It's actually like 1,300.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not just gonna be like, yeah, it's 1,800 square foot bungalow. Like you have to make sure like you can trust the source of the information. Even Geo Warehouse, which is like a website agents use to verify who owns a house. You can see transaction history, lot size, all that stuff. Even that can be wrong. Usually it's right though. Like the postal code, I've seen it be wrong before.
And that's something you have to be careful with as well, because the people entering the information as well can make errors, right? Which I've seen them in the like land registry system.
Yeah.
So often I'll be at a house, like the bedroom thing you said. So they'll have like 3 bedrooms upstairs and a room in the basement that they're using as like a guest room with no windows or anything. And they'll say, when we bought this house, we were told it was 4 bedrooms, but it's not 4 bedrooms. And it's unfortunate that they were told that. So, you know, often we'll put on the listing that room in the basement is like a den or a craft room or like whatever, right?
Right, smart.
We don't want to put that it's a bedroom.
Yeah.
And sometimes the sellers are like, well, that sucks. Like, we really want to express to people that like there is this 4th room down here. Like, it can be a bedroom. We feel that adds value.
Yeah.
It's not a true bedroom. And by putting that on the listing, you could get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
So when I go to someone's house and I tell them that, I'm obviously not trying to take away from their listing that I'm going to be selling. It's to protect them.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure everything is 100% correct, so there's no loopholes, so that people can't get in trouble. And a lot of the time when someone's buying a property, they see what it is. Even if the Realtor.ca listing is wrong, they're like, we know what we're buying. And some people are okay with it, but there's also some people that aren't okay with it. And there's times where people are at the lawyer's office going over their purchase and their lawyer points something out to them. Like, did you know that this is not legal? And the buyer's like, what? We didn't know that. And then it stirs up a whole, thing before closing, or what's supposed to be closing, because sometimes they don't close.
Yeah, it reminds me like when you're, as an agent, when you're looking at the MLS sheet and, like the description where it's the agent, saying the house is the best thing ever. And it says like new upgrades include new deck or new kitchen, like you said, new this or that, whatever they've done, whatever work. So obviously on there, you want to make sure that you have like receipts and everything to kind of show for that, and make sure that it's all accurate.
I feel that Century 21 also does a really good job of making sure that the agents are doing things correctly.
Yeah.
So, for example, when we have an estate sale and there's an estate trustee that's, has the authority to list and sell the property, our office will even want proof of that, right? So when I go to the family's houses, I'm like, I obviously believe you that you are the executor and the person that is assigned to handle everything. But I do need the proof because, again, to protect them and the realtors and the brokerage as well.
Certificate of a state appointment trustee or something? Certificate? some crazy long mumble jumble document. But yeah, exactly right. You have to make sure that everything is up to par. And sometimes people don't it's almost like there's a bit of resistance when you ask for these things, where they're kind of like, why do you need this or why do you need that? But then something might come up where they're like, oh, I didn't get a permit to do this, or it's just me that built the deck or something like that. Maybe they don't want to disclose that. So it's just part of the process, figuring these things out, because buyers are going to ask questions and you can't mislead. So like when I help someone buy, I'll always put a question to the listing agent where it says like, are there any open permits or work orders or liens on title that you're aware of? I think that just put the onus on them to answer that. And sometimes the agent doesn't ask the question to the seller before listing the house too about those things. So then if you can make that conversation happen, then that agent might find something out that they didn't know. And then all of a sudden you're avoiding a problem that could have come up later, and you're bringing it to right now, which is kind of smart. And then you're also, doing it for your client, which is good because they're going to want to know that instead of like them dealing with it with another transaction. So
definitely, yeah.
Probably saves everyone involved before an offer gets put together to like ask those kind of questions. But yeah, a lot of people do work to houses, and it's our job too to kind of like see, right? Like we're looking at a house, like, oh, it looks like that was been done, but there's no mention about that. Maybe I'll just ask about that or about this. Whereas the buyer's like looking where they're going to put their couch or something. So it's good to have the right kind of experience to guide you, meaning like an agent who knows what to kind of look for, to ask the right questions to make sure you're not going to get misled or something.
Oh, for sure. And there's people that are often told that they have things that they don't. So a client just messaged me this morning telling me they have deeded access to a parking lot. And
parking lot?
Yeah, to park like boats and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
So I'm familiar with where the parking lot is, and I know that the owner allows people to park there, but I want to actually make sure that it's registered on title, this deeded access. They were told that they have deeded access, and it's not that I don't believe them that they do, it's just that if I'm going to list their property and advertise that, I want to have proof that we have deeded access. Because again, they could be in a lot of trouble if we put that on the listing and they find out they don't. And it's not that people are lying or trying to make their house sound better. They genuinely believe and were told when they purchased the property that, like in the other example, that there's 4 bedrooms or that they have deeded access. I see that all the time. And sometimes when I go to list a property, you probably have been in the same situation, I have to tell people they don't actually have what they thought they have or what they were told.
Yeah.
And it sucks sometimes for them to hear the news, but it's something that needs to be told.
Exactly. It all depends who you work with. Like, there's a house that I just sold where the driveway was shared, and when they bought it privately. So the lawyer, I don't know, I'm trying to remember, like I think the lawyer might have mentioned it was mutual or shared, and they just were okay with it, didn't look into it. And then here I am now selling the house, and I'm aware that it's shared because they told me. So then I'm like, okay, but it didn't lead to anything. Like usually you go in and it goes to like a different spot, right, for each owner of each house. But it didn't. They could just park their 2 cars, and then there was another vehicle parked on the front lawn. That's kind of like a little driveway for that neighbor, and so the current arrangement's totally fine. But I don't want to be like, yeah, you can park 2 cars in this driveway and it's going to be fine because it's shared, and shared driveways you can't park in it. So reach out to a lawyer, and the lawyer's basically like, well, there's no verbiage in here saying you can't park in it, but it is shared. So maybe you could word it that like you could say current arrangement allows for 2 parking spaces, however it's shared. And that way, at least you're disclosing it accurately and still trying to market your client's home properly, so you're not like saying there's 0 parking spaces, because that's just going to turn everyone off, especially if they're like, well, I can park in it. It hasn't been a problem. Because the counter argument's like, what if the neighbor moves and that person's not that friendly, and then now you can't park it anymore? So you can say, maybe the lawyer's advice was like, you could say the current arrangement allows for that kind of setup. So a lot of these things can kind of lead into like legal advice type stuff. So you can talk to a lawyer and kind of seek out how to best advertise it. But you obviously want to make sure you're not putting yourself as a homeowner at risk if you like conceal something, or like you say something is a certain year when it wasn't that year, or you should have got permits and you didn't, or something like that, or you didn't close something off. That kind of
Well, also too, some people are worried that if we don't put the year of the kitchen or the roof or whatever it is that they did, that it's taking away from the listing. But overall, not really. I mean, when people go there and they see the roof is in good shape, they see clearly the kitchen looks newer and updated, they don't really care so much about the years. Of course, to the seller, they want to have in the listing, like this was done this year and that year, because it's important to them. But in terms of the buyers, they just want to walk in, love the house, know that the stuff is clearly somewhat updated, and go from there.
Yeah.
So giving out the years, I always tell people, like, don't stress about it. If you don't know the year of the roof, don't stress. Like, I can tell by looking at it, it's in great shape. Home inspector will tell people it's in great shape. That's all people really want to know.
Yeah.
They're not going to hold back from buying your house because they don't have the roof age.
Yeah, you're probably better to not say something if you're truly not aware.
Right, sure,
Unless
yeah.
it's something that like ought to be a disclosure. But if you're not aware of it, and you're taking a guess at it, you're like, oh, shingles, like I'm pretty sure the shingles, I mean, they said it was like a year old when we bought it. We bought it when it was like 2017, so it's 2016. So I had to say it's
Right,
2016.
yeah.
Turns out it's like 2012 or something, and then the buyer could verify that, and it's like, well, we thought it was 2016, but it was actually 2012. Stuff like that. But why even say how old the shingles are? The buyer has a bit of duty to figure things out for themselves that they want to know about, and then their agents can look into things and ask questions, or seek the right experts, right? Like if I'm like, well, I don't know the age of the shingles, they think it's here, but we're not saying it's this age, we're not aware. And if they're like, well, I need to know, then maybe do a home inspection or talk to a roofing expert and try and get an answer to that. So that seek the right experts help to kind of get those answers. So you're better to like always make sure it's accurate, but not over disclose that you could, like remember SPIS forms that people use where like you answer all these questions, and if something's off, then it could cause a lawsuit or some kind of misrepresentation. We don't use that anymore, I don't think, right?
No.
So it's obviously because there's a certain amount of disclosure that's good for you and your client, and that's mandatory, and then there's like too much as well. So it's finding like a good balance. So,
for sure.
Sweet. Well, that's a wrap.